Masachika is a disgusting otaku who had zero chance of clapping real cheeks for being an ugly loner. However, everything changes when he suddenly finds out that the hottest chick in his class is secretly liking him and wants to go straight to the hawk tuah with him. It all started one morning when the most popular girl in his class, named Alia, arrives at school with all the students staring at her as if she were a goddess. This moron, who happens to be the hottest dude in school, walks up to her to use some rusty pickup lines his grandpa taught him, but she tells him she doesn't go out with ugly idiots, destroying his ego. She soon gets to class and finds Masachika sleeping like a depressed cow, which annoys her, so she wakes him violently and asks if he spent the night watching anime recaps on Luffy Recaps again. He excitedly talks about how much he loves the recaps, but this only makes Alia think he is the stupidest boy she has ever seen. Later during the class, Masachika keeps dozing off, and Alia pokes him with her pen, which jacks him back awake, calling the attention of the whole class. The teacher, seeing his hand raised up, tells him to answer the question, but Masachika doesn't know what the heck he is talking about. Alia shows him an answer in the workbook, and he quickly says that only to discover it is the wrong answer. Just then, Alia raises her hand and answers the question correctly, making him feel like a fool, but she claims she was only showing him the question. He gets pissed, and she suddenly calls him cute in Russian, not knowing that he understands, surprising him. However, he asks what the hell that means, and she tells him she was only saying he was stupid. During the break, Masachika thinks about how he learned Russian from playing with a Russian girl when he was young, but he never realized it would lead to this bizarre situation of a hottie literally glazing him in Russian. However, he can't let her know he can understand her, as she might just enter the ground in shame. Following that, Masachika brings out his phone to drool over an anime goddess with silver hair, and Alia grabs the phone off his hand, stating that it is prohibited within the school environment. However, she sees that the anime girl's got silver hair like her, so she gives him back the phone and calls him a cheat in Russian for not admiring her, who also has silver hair, surprising him. A few minutes later, during lunch, one ugly dude complains to Masachika about how hard the dating market has been for him because he looks like an ape. At that moment, they spot Alia, her sister, Masha, and Yuki, who seem to be the hottest girls in school, enter the dining hall, and Masachika's friends start talking about them. Just while they discuss how out of their league these girls are, Yuki notices Masachika and comes with Alia to his table. When Alia notices how playful Yuki is with Masachika, she asks them if they are friends, and she replies that they have been friends since childhood, surprising her. Just then, the two simps on the table get up immediately because they can't bear being on the same table with these hotties. Afterward, Yuki asks Masachika if he has considered her offer to join the student council, but he says he is not interested. However, Yuki tells him he will be fit since he was once the vice president in middle school. Alia is surprised to hear this, and Yuki says that she was the president while Masachika was her vice. Masachika states that he only ran for the position because Yuki wanted him to, but Yuki proceeds to tell Alia that he is very capable when it comes to getting things done. However, Alia replies in Russian that she already knows that. Later, after Yuki leaves, Alia expresses how surprised she is that Masachika and Yuki are that close, saying that she never knew someone would love to be friends with an idiot like him. The next morning, Masachika wakes up from a dream about his childhood crush, who forced him to learn Russian so he could talk with her, but unfortunately, he can't remember her name. He gets to school early that morning to clean the classroom since he and Alia are on duty. Alia soon arrives and sees he has cleaned all, but she doesn't give a crap about this. She goes to her seat, and Masachika notices that she is wet. He asks her who got her wet, and she replies some stupid driver like that splashed water on her. She then sits down and asks him if he really does not want to be part of the student council, and he replies no. She tells him to never mind and starts to remove her socks, which almost fries Masachika's brain as he sees her hot legs. Noticing this, she takes advantage of it and asks him to get her spare socks for her. She then tells him to put them on for her, shocking him. However, he gets to it immediately so he won't seem like a noob, but this embarrasses Alia, who never expected he would do it. Meanwhile, Masachika almost touches her plot as he wears the socks, leading to a kick to his disgusting face. Following that, Masachika chats with his sister about how he may have a thing for legs. He wonders what to do in this situation and notices that Alia is still pissed with him. She leaves the class immediately, and he follows after her to apologize for his naughtiness. She tells him she is not mad anymore and also apologizes for kicking him, but the idiot tells her he should be the one thanking for giving him a peek into her promised land. This embarrasses her, and she kicks him again. She then runs off while he chases after her, knowing he is very stupid. They soon get exhausted, and Masachika offers her her favorite drink to appease her. After Alia drinks, she asks in Russians if he wants an indirect kiss. Masachika head crash out, but he replies he don't understand what she's saying. The following day, Yuki invites Masachika to assist her and Alia in arranging the student council room, and as they talk together, Alia gets jealous that he is not giving her equal attention, and she demands that he comes to her too, in Russian, surprising Masachika. Just then, the student council president, Kenzaki, arrives, and Masachika admires him because he has this Sigma aura. Masachika excuses himself, but Kenzaki invites him to dinner to show his appreciation for his contribution. He initially rejects it, but Yuki encourages him to because he's got nothing to go eat at home anyway. Kenzaki then invites Yuki and Alia to come along too. At the cafe, Kenzaki states how surprised he is that they were fast with the arrangement, and Yuki replies that it's all thanks to Masachika, who happens to be an expert at cleaning and paperwork. Hearing this, Kenzaki tells Masachika to join the student council, but he replies that he is done with that she forever. Yuki cuts in by saying she wants to run for presidency with him again, but Masachika replies that he doesn't need to assist her in that since it is almost certain that she would win already. However, Kenzaki declares that he is not sure about that as Alia would also be contesting for the same position, surprising Masachika. After dinner, Masachika walks Alia and returns home to meet his sister on the couch. It happens that Yukai is his actual little sister, who is just disguising herself to be his childhood friend because she's crushing on her big bro. The next morning, Masachika is woken up by Yuki. She asks if what she feels is due to her or due to the morning, making Masachika angry. They go shopping, and while at it, they spot Alia fuming at them from a corner, so Masachika wonders what to do in this mess. Just then, his silly sister suddenly goes to meet her, and Alia lies that she just happened to notice them a few moments ago, even though the dweeb has been staring for a long time. Now that she is here, Yukai invites her to come along with them to a restaurant, but Masachika immediately refutes, saying they should go somewhere else instead. Alia is surprised and wonders why he doesn't want her to go to the place they initially planned, so Yuki tells her it's because it is a spicy food restaurant. Masachika adds that it is not just spicy, but it is super spicy and could make her regret her life's decisions. However, Alia insists that she wants to go, and upon reaching the restaurant, she is shocked when she sees hell in its name. They head inside, and as Alia goes through the menu containing the various options of hell available, Masachika advises her on the one to choose that's not as spicy since it is her first time, and while they await the order, Alia notices Yuki's dress, which seems boyish. Yuki reveals that she was in bed with Masachika that morning and thought about wearing his shirt when they were going out. Alia is shocked and turns to Masachika to know what is happening. And Masachika defends that Yuki just came to his house and jumped on him while he was still in bed. But Alia tells him to make up a better lie because that right there is a cap. The order soon arrives and they start eating. Alia almost begins to cry for her mama as she tastes the food, but she pretends to be fine so she doesn't lose her aura. Seeing this, Yuki decides to play wicked by offering her a chili seasoning to make her food even more spiky, and Alia agrees to give it a try even though Masachika warns her not to. She ends up squirming in pain, and after lunch, Masachika meets her to ask if she is fine. He offers her some ice cream to cool her tongue, and as she licks his cream, she is delighted because it is the sweetest cream she has ever swallowed. Masachika suddenly asks her why she is running for the student council president, and she snaps at him, saying it is her choice. He asks her if she has a running partner, and she says no, but since they are allowed to only run in pairs, she will get a random person to just be her vice in paper because she doesn't need anyone's support. However, she confesses her desire to run with him in Russian, surprising Masachika. Afterward, Alia asks him to assist her in shopping, and he agrees since she has no friends after all. During the shopping, she tries different clothes, and even though she is initially embarrassed, not knowing if Masachika would like them, she soon begins to enjoy it as he rains her with compliments. She then decides to try more revealing clothes, but she becomes embarrassed when she comes out of the changing room and finds Yuki outside. Later in the train, she remains embarrassed until Masachika and Yuki alight from the train. While she beats herself up for being so silly, she suddenly realizes that the two dropped at the same station and wonders why. Alia heads home, and her sister Masha greets her with her usual cheer. However, noticing Alia's oddly gloomy mood, Masha wastes no time asking what's up. Alia mentions Masachika and his supposed childhood friend, which gets Masha all excited because she knows her sister is finally liking someone, unlike before when her heart used to be fortified with vibranium. Alia tries to brush it off, but Masha isn't buying it. She outrightly asks if she likes Masachika, but Alia insists they're just friends. Masha isn't convinced, but points out how surprised she is that she likes a lazy slacker, which she would normally avoid like the plague. This makes Alia think back to how it all started 6 years ago in Russia during a class project. The winning group was to get a prize, and Alia, being her overachieving self, went into town to interview someone for their project. But when she returned, she realized her group couldn't care less about her efforts. Alia tried to motivate them, but they were just a bunch of deadweights who loved losing. She even wrote a detailed report for the project, but they dismissed her, telling her to go hug an electric pole. Frustrated, Alia finished the project solo, only to watch another group win. The loss hit hard, and on her way home, she decided she was done relying on people. She became determined to be like Cristiano Ronaldo. Fast forward a few years, Alia transferred to a prestigious Japanese school and met Masachika, the king of zero effort and nonchalance. This guy acted like he was only alive because breathing is automatic. When the school festival rolled around, everyone had tasks to do, but Alia ended up doing most of the work. Her classmates told her to relax, but Alia was not going to take advice from people allergic to making an effort. So she stayed back at school that afternoon to work and even injured herself while at it. Out of nowhere, Masachika showed up, somehow aware she was pushing herself too hard. He told her to go home, assuring her everyone would help the next day, but Alia wasn't having it. Then Masachika whipped out a permission slip from the Handicrafts Club, which allowed them to stay late in school and work as a group. Alia was stunned as she wondered how such a lazy bum managed that. He pointed out she didn't have to do everything alone, which annoyed her even more. She ranted about quality and hard work, but Masachika brushed it off and apologized, acknowledging her effort. However, he told her she was putting effort into the wrong thing. Alia reluctantly agreed to leave, though she kept wondering what was up with this dude. The next day, the boys stepped up their game because they all had the girls to impress, and Alia was shocked. Everything soon got done, and they all had fun. At the festival's after-party, Alia found Masachika sitting alone and went to sit with him. He teased her about not dancing, and she claimed her admirers were all horrible. Masachika laughed and called her Ice Princess, as she was popularly known. Meanwhile, Alia hated the nickname, saying it made her sound spoiled. She explained she worked hard for everything she had and didn't want people to think she was just a lucky child because of her birthplace. Hearing this, Masachika promised not to call her that again, surprising her, and she thanked him for teaching her to enjoy the festival, even if she was a bit of a jerk before. Then, some desperate, depraved boys showed up, begging Alia for a dance. She became visibly uncomfortable, so Masachika interrupted and grabbed her hand, telling them she was taken. Alia's heart began to skip like rams as Masachika challenged her to show him what she's got. She accepted, and for once, Masachika dropped his laid-back attitude. Back in the present, Masha gushes about the story, calling it a classic friends-to-lovers situation, but Alia denies it, saying she's probably been friend-zoned or something. The next day, Masachika fills in at the student council and meets Masha, who introduces herself as Alia's sister. However, she finds him weirdly familiar when she hears his name and stares at him for a moment. While shopping for supplies, Masha gets distracted by a plushie and insists on naming it after Alia, much to Masachika's amusement. Later, at a tea shop, Masachika is remembering his parents' divorce while making a bad expression when Masha suddenly recomforts him. Her gesture feels oddly familiar to Masachika, but the moment is ruined when she spills hot tea on him. Masachika and Masha stroll back to the student council room, where Kenzaki, with his usual playful smirk, teases Masha about forgetting her creepy demon plushie. Once they hand over the supplies, Kenzaki thanks Masachika for saving the office from becoming a haunted house. Not one to waste an opportunity, Kenzaki again asks if Masachika's thought about joining the student council. As expected, Masachika declines, saying that he'd rather have his balls crushed and become an eunuch. But he does promise to help when needed. However, Masha suggests he could join on paper, leaving Masachika suspicious about their persistence. Kenzaki digs deeper, questioning Masachika's resistance. He even brings up how Masachika was a standout vice president back in middle school. Masachika brushes it off, claiming he never cared about it. That's when Kenzaki gets personal, confessing his own motivation for becoming president, which is that he wanted to impress a chick that was out of his league. To drive his point home, Kenzaki pulls out a photo of his former self. Masachika stares at it in disbelief, thinking it's Kenzaki's younger brother. But Kenzaki confirms it's him, just 2 years ago, looking like a human meme. Masachika adds that he really looked like he was used for wiping bums, and Kenzaki laughs, admitting he was a walking disaster until he decided to change for his crush. Kenzaki then points out that even Masha joined because Chisaki asked her to. Masha doesn't deny it and says what matters is working for the students, no matter the reason for joining. Kenzaki reminds Masachika of his glory days with Yuki in middle school, urging him not to be ashamed of wanting to help someone else succeed. Masachika, now deep in thought, promises to consider it. When Masachika asks about Alia, Kenzaki mentions she's mediating a clash between the soccer and baseball teams over field usage. Both teams have big events, soccer's headed to regionals, and baseball's being scouted. But Chisaki's busy, so Alia's handling it. Knowing Alia's likely overwhelmed, Masachika decides to check it out. When he arrives there, the scene is pure chaos as the teams are in a full-on stare-down while Alia tries to mediate. Her suggestion to use the Riverside Park falls flat, with the soccer team trying to dump the idea on the baseball players who flatly refuse. Meanwhile, the captains and managers stay oddly quiet, letting the players escalate the argument. Alia becomes overwhelmed, and realizing she's losing control, she starts to doubt herself. Her dream of becoming president starts to feel like a TikTok prank, and she begins to cry. Switching to Russian, she whispers for help, and that's when Masachika steps in, announcing himself as the new Student Council General Affairs Officer. Masachika quickly takes over, proposing a compromise. The baseball team can practice at the Riverside Park, with the soccer team sending players to assist. The players start to argue, but Masachika ignores them, turning his attention to the managers. Just as tensions peak, the soccer team's manager steps forward, offering her team's help. The baseball players, seeing their manager take the lead, grudgingly agree. With the dispute settled, Masachika tells them to file official requests the next day and escorts Alia back to the office. On the way, Masachika apologizes for stepping in, worried he might have made Alia look bad. She brushes it off but asks how he knew the manager would volunteer. Masachika hesitates before revealing that the soccer manager is dating the baseball captain. The captain stayed silent because he didn't want to take sides, but Masachika knew the manager would step up to support her boyfriend. Later, they run into Kenzaki, who asks how things went. Alia credits Masachika for saving the day, and Kenzaki praises them both. Masachika, however, calls Kenzaki out for orchestrating the entire situation. Kenzaki admits it and cheekily asks if Masachika's ready to join. This time, Masachika says yes. As they leave, Alia grills Masachika about his motivations, accusing him of joining just to compete with Yuki for president. Masachika flips the question, asking if Alia would step aside if he ran, but Alia, determined as ever, declares she won't back down. Masachika, impressed by her resolve, offers to help her become president instead, which leaves Alia stunned, but Masachika reassures her, extending his hand. She wipes away a tear and accepts, though she suddenly mutters something in Russian that leaves Masachika puzzled. Moments later, Alia accuses him of thinking about someone else, specifically Yuki, but he denies it. However, Alia lands him a hot slap, leaving him on the ground. Later, before they separate, she leans in and kisses his cheek unexpectedly.
Okay, let's go.
Because he knows Russian, Masachika understood that Alia had just confessed her feelings in Russian earlier. Now she's freaking out, struggling to accept that she has feelings for him. Some moments later, she hears the door and goes to meet Masha, who looks like she got run over by a truck. Alia asks what is wrong, but Masha distracts her with the plushie she calls Alia. As she heads inside, she suddenly asks about Masachika, but Alia remains defensive, so Masha advises her to make her move before it's too late. Alia asks why she is all about this, but Masha just walks away, leaving Alia more confused than ever. Masachika heads home, cringing at himself for simping so hard to Alia earlier. But then he remembers Alia's confession and wonders if she was genuine or was just messing with his ugly face. Shrugging it off, he recalls his parents' constant fights and concludes that love is nothing but a sham, and he is not ready to waste his time thinking about it. When he gets home, he accidentally walks in on UK in the bathroom. She pretends to be embarrassed, but it's obvious she set it up so he could see God shake her melons. However, Masachika is unimpressed because they are the size of a lime, and he tries to leave, but she stops him, saying that it's weird he's never caught her changing before, as it is always portrayed between brothers and sisters in mangas. However, Masachika says her brain is fried from doom scrolling on TikTok, but claims this is her apology for tricking him earlier. When she presses him about whether he checked her out, he replies that there is nothing to check out anyway since she is built like a skateboard, and the idiot storms off with her self-esteem in shambles, which leaves him wondering what she was expecting. Later, Masachika casually mentions he's joining Elia in running for student council president, and Yuki instantly gets jealous, accusing him of being into Elia because of her tatas, but Masachika tells her to shut her disgusting mouth. As she leaves, she declares that she has now become Alia's rival and tells Masachika that whenever the going gets tough and he needs to rest, her heavenly pillows are always available. The next day at school, Alia finds herself nervously waiting for Masachika, and when he shows up, she pretends to read, stealing glances at him. To her surprise, he's unusually energetic today, unlike his unusual habit of sleeping like an infected cow, and she reasons it must be because of the promise he made the day before to be there for her. During gym class, Masachika zones out and gets smacked in the face with a volleyball. Afterward, Alia finds him sitting outside, and she sits beside him to ask how he is feeling. She checks his forehead temperature, and their heads somehow come closer. But the thirsty dweeb, who never got enough milk as a child, sees her milkers and becomes distracted. They head to the tap for water, but Yuki shows up, smothering him with attention and affection, which leaves Alia visibly annoyed, so she grabs him and drags him away. After walking a bit, she stops and asks if he's okay, commenting that he hasn't been himself. Masachika reveals he skipped breakfast, making Alia realize that dude wasn't awake earlier because of her. He was just too hungry to fall asleep. He tells her he actually could pay attention in class because he slept well the previous night. But this only makes her mad because she can't believe he slept well when she was busy beating herself up over slapping him. He tells her it was nothing to worry about because the Bible says that if you are slapped on one cheek, you should turn the other. However, this only makes her angrier, and she storms off, wondering why she fell for such an idiot. Later, at the student council meeting, Masachika introduces himself as the new general affairs member, and to everyone's surprise, he announces that he and Alia will be running mates for next year's student council presidential election. Kenzaki thanks Masachika for joining the council, noting his experience as a middle school vice president will be valuable. He also asks Masachika to help train the team, which makes Masachika question if they're short-staffed. Yuki interrupts, asking to visit the art club with Alia to discuss an exhibit. However suspicious, Masachika wonders if something is brewing between the two. On their way, Alia suggests they stop in an empty classroom. She announces her plan to run for president, but Yuki reveals that Masachika already informed her. Surprised, Alia admits she wanted to inform Yuki personally. Meanwhile, Yuki says she doesn't mind but regrets that Masachika didn't choose her instead. Alia hesitates to respond, but Yuki suddenly confesses her love for Masachika, saying she loves him more than she loves her parents. Yuki flips the question back, but Alia nervously insists Masachika is just a friend. However, Yuki doesn't buy that crap and presses her until Alia finally admits she's unsure of her feelings but won't let Yuki have him because Masachika belongs to her. Yuki gives a smirk and leaves for the art club, leaving Alia to wonder why the heck she even said that. Meanwhile, Masachika and Masha work on reports in the council room. Masachika appreciates Masha's efficiency, but contrasts it with Chisaki, the president's silly girlfriend who behaves like an idiot. Seeing that his girlfriend is about to embarrass herself, Kenzaki quickly sends her away, then tries to talk her up to Masachika, and he plays along despite knowing that Chisaka is not any smarter than a hippo. When Alia and Yuki return, Alia sits unusually close to Masachika, claiming it's bad luck for a girl to sit at the table's corner. Masachika brushes it off, but notices tension between the girls. He asks Masha about the superstition, and she confirms it, joking that corner seats doomed to not having the opportunity to clap for life. Alia whispers in Russian that marriage isn't in her plans yet though, surprising Masachika that she could still say that in front of her sister, who also understands Russian. Later, Kenzaki dismisses the first years, leading the second years to meet with teachers. On their way home, Masachika and Alia stop at a cafe to discuss the presidential election. Alia teases him, calling it a date in Russian, catching him off guard. At the cafe, Alia orders a large parfait, claiming she needs sugar to think. Just then, Masachika asks what happened with Yuki, but Alia dodges the question and instead asks if he's dating her. Masachika denies it, joking that he doesn't really like ugly girls. Following this, he begins to explain their uphill battle against Yuki, who is essentially unbeatable due to her popularity and strategy. However, Alia gets bored and starts gulping her parfait like a glutton to distract herself from the long yapping. She suggests sharing her parfait to change the subject, and Masachika reluctantly gives in, but the idiot immediately reasons that this is an indirect kiss. Masachika shifts the topic to strategy, suggesting Elia show her hardworking side to appeal to students, similar to how Kenzeki won by taking the students on his looks-maxing journey from being an ugly fatso to being a giga-chad. Alia agrees but doesn't know where to start, so Masachika advises her to make an impression during the upcoming term's closing ceremony speech. When Masachika orders a spicy chili, Alia tries a bite to prove her toughness but instantly regrets it as the heat overwhelms her. On their way home, she asks what Yuki might do in the election, and Masachika predicts Yuki will take a student council partner. He warns they'll be in trouble if she chooses someone like Taniyama, a strong rival from a past election. Meanwhile, the next day during a council meeting, Yuki shocks everyone by revealing her running partner, Ayano. The next day, Masachika strolls through the hallway when Ayano suddenly appears behind him, shocking him, and tells him to follow her. Outside, she thanks him for sparing time to talk, but Masachika cuts straight to the point, telling her to drop the formalities and say what's on her mind. Ayano asks if it's true he's running for the presidential election with Alia. When Masachika confirms, she tells him their master isn't happy about him going against Yuki after despising their family. However, Masachika replies that he doesn't give 2 cents about that because the supposed master is a blockhead who is trying to act like family now after treating him like a stranger. He guesses Gramps sent Ayano to confirm the rumors, but Ayano claims it's her own duty to assess potential threats to Yuki. She admits she trusted Masachika wouldn't hurt Yuki, but it seems she was wrong. Masachika explains that running with Alia wasn't to oppose Yuki, but Ayano pushes further, asking if Alia is worth hurting Yuki for, and Masachika firmly replies that he will do it for free. He adds that he had promised Alia he'd do everything to help her win. Hearing this, Ayano hints that he might be having feelings for Alia, but he denies it, saying he's just doing it because he wants to. A few moments later, before leaving, Ayano asks if Yuki still means the world to him. Masachika assures her that Yuki remains his top priority and begs Ayano to watch over her. Later in class, Masachika's idiotic friends are drooling over a magazine of hot chicks, teasing him about Alia, but he brushes it off, saying she's like a little sister to him. Overhearing this, Alia insults him in Russian and accuses him of bringing such a magazine to school. Masachika quickly blames his friends, but Alia takes her seat, clearly irritated. His clueless friends continue their chatter, even joking about Masachika dating Yuki. Not wanting Alia's wrath, he denies it, claiming he wants a girlfriend who's his bestie with a cute smile. Alia's heart flutters, but things turn south when one of his friends makes a sarcastic comment about her. Masachika shuts him down, urging them to make Alia feel good, even if he has to lie or something. Instead, they dig the hole deeper, leaving Alia fuming. Meanwhile, Ayana reports her meeting with Masachika to Yuki. Yuki realizes Masachika isn't backing down from the election, and Ayano admits his confidence made her damp down there. Yuki teasingly asks if Ayano likes Masachika, but Ayano denies it, claiming she's too ugly for him and would rather be his tissue to blow his nose. She reassures Yuki that Masachika still thinks she's the most important person in his life, leaving Yuki blushing like a puppy who just got a belly rub. Later, during a card game in the student council room, Alia looks stressed while her sister Masha stays calm. Ayano serves Chapman drinks, acting like a maid, and weirdly stares into Masachika's soul. Some moments later, the drinks run out, so Masachika and Masha step out to get more. As they walk, Masha thanks him for supporting Alia. Masachika downplays it, but Masha explains Alia has always been a lonely hard worker, and she's glad Masachika is there for her. They make some boring chit-chat nobody cares about their experiences with their siblings, and Masha advises Masachika not to hide his responsible side. To his surprise, she ruffles his hair, which leaves him wondering how she manages to break through his walls so easily. Meanwhile, as Alia walks to class, she is confronted by Taniyama, who accuses her of running with Masachika and taking him from Yuki. Masachika intervenes, defending Alia and demanding an apology. Instead, Taniyama challenges him to a student congress, dragging Alia into it too, calling her unfit to run for president. Alia stands up for herself, but Taniyama dismisses her, ready to take them both down. The next day, Kenzeki reads the debate topic to Masachika and Alia, introducing teacher screenings for student council entry. Masachika immediately feels targeted. After all, his reputation is quite a mess with the teachers. Kenzeki questions if this debate is even worth their time, but Alia insists it is. She says beating Taniyama will legitimize their candidacy and adds, with a smirk, that she'd love to see Taniyama eat her words and apologize. Determined, Alia and Masachika dive into preparations. Masachika predicts Taniyama's arguments and crafts the appropriate responses they could give in the different plausible situations. During a break, Alia curiously asks if he and Taniyama have bad blood. Masachika denies it, saying they once respected each other when they worked together. But now he thinks Taniyama believes he's just here to stir trouble. Alia isn't buying it though, but when Masachika mentions his past partnership with Yuki, Alia realizes this drama is happening because Masachika chose her, so she becomes determined to win so this can finally be resolved. As they head to the student congress the next day, a strange girl named Miyame approaches, dressed like she is going for 5 nights at Freddy's rather than a debate, and introduces herself as Taniyama's debate partner. Alia is surprised at how chilled she is and nervously introduces herself too, only for Miyame to comment that Alia and Taniyama might get along. After she leaves, Alia asks why Miyame, of all people, is Taniyama's partner. Masachika explains they've been best friends since childhood, despite being polar opposites, and adds that Miyame is super popular and well-connected. While Alia sees this as an advantage for the enemy, Masachika reminds her to focus on Taniyama instead and not be bothered by the other idiot. Once inside the hall, Alia starts doubting herself. Sensing her nerves, Masachika suddenly teases that he heard her milk bags are big enough to feed the city of Tokyo, embarrassing her, and she calls him a loser for making such a naughty comment in such a tense situation. However, Masachika shrugs and says there's nothing she can do, but if she's really mad, she could just go and hug a porcupine. His playful banter surprisingly calms her down. He then offers some real advice, saying her opponent isn't Taniyama, but rather herself trying to be perfect. He adds that she doesn't have to be perfect, but should just do what feels cool, assuring that if things go south, he will be there to handle it. The debate soon begins, and Taniyama kicks things off with a scathing critique of the current system. She argues that the student council has been filled with unqualified idiots, proposing that teacher screenings would ensure only capable candidates run. Alia steps up next and, inspired by Masachika's advice, she counters, saying teacher involvement would undermine the president and vice president, reducing them to useless figureheads with no say. As Alia makes her case, Masachika notices Taniyama glaring at him, clearly suspecting he fed Alia her points. Taniyama retaliates, arguing that recent councils have accepted anyone, even fools, and insists teachers' approval would prevent incompetence. Alia responds that the president and vice president can admit their shortcomings and seek teacher advice when needed. But then, Taniyama delivers a curveball, asking what if the president and vice president abuse their power. Alia instantly freezes, unsure how to respond, and seeing this, Masachika steps in to continue from there. He asks the audience what the debate is really about and points to Kenzaki, highlighting how he transformed from a miserable existence to the capable president he is today, which is proof that the current system works. Hearing this, silence fills the room, and Kenzaki looks stunned. Defeated, Taniyama runs out of the hall, embarrassed, and Alia chases after her immediately, finding her overwhelmed with emotion. Taniyama vents, asking why Masachika chose Alia over Yuki, implying she feels betrayed since she always thought Yuki and Masachika shared something beautiful. Alia admits she doesn't know why either but vows to prove she's the right choice. Later, Alia asks Masachika the same question, and Masachika reveals he ran with Yuki out of guilt. But this time, he chose Alia because he genuinely wanted to. Flustered, Alia responds in Russian, leaving Masachika amused since he secretly understands. As they part ways, Alia reminds him of his earlier comment about her plot size, and Masachika says someone once told him she is carrying a cargo right there. Alia mutters in Russian that it's true, completely unaware Masachika heard her. A few days later, Yuki is having dinner with her grandfather when he brings up the recent student congress between Masachika and Taniyama. He's disappointed in Taniyama for leaving mid-debate and calls her a moron. Yuki defends her, saying she must have had her reasons, but the old man doesn't buy it. He rants about how Masachika, despite his privilege, threw everything away, and now losing to someone like him is unacceptable. He sternly tells Yuki she can't afford to lose, no matter the opponent. Later, Yuki's mom approaches her moodily and asks if she's still close to Masachika. She says yes and asks what is wrong, but her mom refuses to explain her concern. The next day at school, Masachika is the center of attention after his big comeback at the Congress. Some glazers bombard him with questions, but he dodges them and tells them to ask Alia instead. The attention shifts to Alia, and the guys mock Taniyama for walking out of the debate. Annoyed, Alia storms out, and Masachika follows to comfort her. He reassures her they fought fair and shouldn't care about the rumors, but Alia insists they only won because Taniyama left. Masachika reluctantly agrees to help fix things for Taniyama, even if it means risking their victory. Alia apologizes for making him go through this, but Masachika brushes it off, saying they're in it together. While talking, Masachika notices Kenzeki and Chisaki hiding under a table and pretends not to see them. However, Alia starts acting Saz as though she wants to bite his lips passionately, so to distract her, Masachika exposes the two, embarrassing Alia, who runs off afterward. Masachika then heads to Miyame's class and calls her out for a chat. She teases him about wanting to ask her out, but Masachika replies that he would rather date a monkey. He gets serious and proposes spreading a rumor to explain Taniyama's sudden exit, framing it as an act of integrity rather than defeat. Miyame is surprised but agrees, despite it potentially questioning their win. Miyame soon leaves and Yuki and Ayano suddenly appear, shocking Masachika that they have overheard his conversation with Miyame. Just then, Alia catches them together, and though annoyed, she pretends to be fine, saying that it's no big deal seeing three childhood friends hanging out in an empty classroom. Miyame returns to class, and the others ask her why Masachika asked to meet her, to which she replies that he only wanted to know why Taniyama is not in school. They are shocked and ask if the defeat really got to her, but Miyame changes the subject by saying all that happened during the debate was all her fault. She had planted some students within the audience to mess things up for Alia and Masachika, and when Taniyama discovered this, she left the hall because she felt the debate was no longer fair. Later, Alia and Masachika end up studying together in the library, but Yuki and Ayano crash the session, creating an awkward vibe with Masachika, which leaves Alia wondering if they are really just childhood friends. Masha joins them, finds a book on hypnosis, and convinces Masachika to try it. To everyone's shock, the spell works, putting Masha under. However, Alia doesn't believe it, so she volunteers as the next test subject, only to be hypnotized too. Noticing this, Yuki becomes goofy and asks Masachika to take advantage of this to do some naughty things, but Masachika refuses. However, things soon escalate when the hypnotized sisters start unbuttoning their uniforms, leaving everyone in panicking as they can't seem to snap them out of this. Meanwhile, Chisaki arrives just in time and becomes useful for the first time in this anime, snapping the girls out of the spell with a technique she learned from Naruto. As the two girls return to their senses, they freak out to see that they are almost in the buff and wonder what happened. Chisaki then turns to Masachika, prepared to factory reset him because he has witnessed the biggest taboo in history. A few days before exams, Masachika struggles to focus on his studies. His thoughts keep drifting to the upcoming anime recap on this channel, but he forces himself to resist, knowing he won't return to studying if he starts watching. After wrestling with his distractions, he concludes that he is suffering from chronic ADHD still. He convinces himself not to let his lack of focus affect Alia's standing in the election. Suddenly, he receives a call from Alia, and he teasingly asks why she's calling, joking that it must be that she misses him. To his shock, Alia admits it in Russian. She quickly adds that she's actually checking in to ensure he isn't slacking off, suspecting he might be jilting to OnlyFans models instead of studying. Masachika confesses he is really distracted, and hearing this, Alia proposes a bet. If he ranks in the top 30 on the exams, she'll do anything he asks, even gagging on his sausage. And if he fails, he'll have to do whatever she wants. He agrees immediately, even knowing it's almost certain he will lose, being a dumbhead just like you. The conversation takes a playful turn when Masachika calls her little sis, but Alia, not wanting to be sister-zoned, immediately protests that they're the same age. Masachika casually mentions her November 7th birthday, surprising her since she never told him. When she presses him on how he knows, he dodges, claiming she must have mentioned it in passing. Realizing he's said too much, he abruptly ends the call. What Masachika doesn't know is that Alia had called him because she was scared after watching a horror movie. Later, she feels guilty for not knowing when his birthday was, even though he considers her a close friend. 5 days later, Masachika and Alia walk home together after school. On the way, Masachika notices that Alia hasn't teased him even once since their phone call, which is quite unusual. Curious, he mentions it, surprising her with his observation. However, she brushes it off, but moments later she suddenly asks why he didn't invite her to his birthday. Caught off guard, Masachika explains that he didn't celebrate it as it's been years since he threw a party, but Alia doesn't believe him, pointing out that in Russia, not inviting someone for your birthday sends a clear message that you are no longer friends. Seeing that she really wants to celebrate it with him, Masachika offers to celebrate it with her belatedly, and they plan a small hangout for the weekend. On their way to the cafe, Masachika tries to lighten the mood with a cheesy pickup line, telling Alia she looks so hot it's making him sweat. Alia dismisses the compliment, unfazed by the attention she always gets. As they settle in, Masachika starts explaining plans for the upcoming closing ceremony, rambling on while Alia devours her meal like a starved glutton. She eventually pulls out a small gift she got for his birthday, and Masachika appreciates it before saying that it would serve in getting her milk. The next day, back in the student council room, Masachika discusses the summer uniform update with Kenzaki. Kenzaki shares that the school plans to unveil the uniforms after the summer break with a surprise announcement at the closing ceremony. As Kenzaki credits Chizaki for getting the proposal approved, the pair begins acting overly lovey-dovey like creeps. Meanwhile, Masha quietly serves tea but remains visibly embarrassed about the previous hypnosis incident. Later, while cleaning up in the kitchen, Masachika reassures her that nothing inappropriate happened during the incident. She is relieved but is suspicious that he must have seen her treasures in 4K, and he confesses, leading to her calling him naughty and playfully pulling his cheek. Returning to the council room, Masachika finds Yuki waiting. Seeing her, he quickly tries to leave, but she stops him. She tells him it's been a while since he played rough with her, and she would like to be rough-handled. She lies on the table and tells him to give her a Cloud 9 odd experience. Masachika is initially reluctant, but he soon agrees and gets into a frisky mood, ready to land his rocket on her moon. Just then, he receives a call and excuses himself to meet his grandpa, who is dressed like a mafia. A few moments later, when Alia and her mom approach them, Masachika's grandfather immediately gushes over Alia because of her beauty. Meanwhile, Alia's mom notices Masachika and blushes, mentioning how much Alia talks about him. Just then, Masachika watches in horror as his grandfather starts proposing on his behalf, embarrassing him. Following this, as Masachika and Gramps leave, they meet a woman who calls his grandfather her father-in-law, and Masachika's reaction changes instantly as if he is about to have his worst nightmare. 3 days later, Masachika wakes up from a dream about his childhood, recalling how his mom was never satisfied with his efforts. He realizes he's caught a cold and skipped school. Out of nowhere, Alia shows up at his door, surprising him. She explains that Yuki sent her with medicine, and he curses Yuki in his head for not warning him. Alia asks to come in, and though Masachika brushes it off, she reveals Yuki also asked her to nurse him, so he reluctantly lets her in. Alia asks if he preferred borscht or regular porridge. Masachika, baffled by her enthusiasm, picks porridge since borscht would take hours. In the kitchen, Alia starts to search Google on how to make the food since her ugly head is an average Gen Z who only knows how to cook noodles. She notices that Masachika is using the mug she gave him and beams with excitement. Soon, she brings him the meal, and Masachika can't help commenting on how good she looks in an apron. As Masachika eats, Alia asks about his parents, and he reveals his dad isn't around, and his mom passed away, leaving her speechless. Afterward, she offers to stay and study in the living room while he rests. Hours later, Masachika wakes up and shockingly finds Alia and Ayano doing the English or Spanish challenge. They ask if he's feeling better, and Ayano offers him her soft pillows to rest on. Masachika, horrified, shuts her down, worried about being cancelled. Alia tries to intervene, but Ayano insists this is part of her maid duties, though Alia reminds her she's Yuki's maid, not Masachika's. Just then, Ayano tells Alia to get going because she has to prepare for what she has the next day, and Alia takes her leave immediately, making Masachika wonder what is going on. After Alia leaves, Ayano serves Masachika borscht, which Alia had prepared. After eating, Ayano gives him medicine, but her helpfulness doesn't end there. She offers to bathe him, sending Masachika into full panic mode, but he firmly tells her to leave before he gets thirsty and can't hold himself. The next morning, Ayano serves him breakfast and medicine, but Masachika notices something's off. He checks the medicine package and realizes he's been taking sleeping pills. Furious, he confronts Ayano, who apologizes for her negligence. Masachika immediately suspects Yuki's involvement and storms off to school despite Ayano's protests. At school, he finds Alia apologizing, feeling like she's wasted his efforts. She recounts how Yuki asked her to care for Masachika, but also roped her into appearing on lunchtime broadcast. Despite Alia's initial refusal, Yuki provoked her with taunts, forcing Alia to agree. However, during the broadcast, Yuki flipped the script, acting meek and apologetic. She shared a sob story about her late brother, who aspired to be president, framing her campaign as fulfilling his dream. Alia caught off guard and faltered when asked about her own reasons for running, realizing how trivial her motivations seemed in comparison. Masachika snaps Alia out of her bad feelings, explaining Yuki's true strategy. The broadcast wasn't about winning students over, it was about throwing Alia off her game before the closing ceremony. Alia feels foolish but relieved as Masachika reassures her and tells her not to compare herself to Yuki. After some cheesy-ass motivational quotes, Alia teases him, telling him he looks like a simp right now, but thanks him for restoring her confidence. Their moment is interrupted by Miyamae and Taniyama, who appear and apologize for causing trouble the other day. Masachika leaves it to Alia to decide whether to forgive them. Afterward, Taniyama plans to announce her defeat herself, but Masachika suggests a better way for her to repay Alia's goodwill. Hearing this, Taniyama agrees to join forces with Alia to completely crush Yuki in the election. That afternoon, Alia practices her speech with Masachika, and despite wasting his time with her boring speech that could make a set's fly sleep, Masachika reassures her that she is set for the closing ceremony. Alia, unconvinced, expresses her doubts. She recalls how she managed the student congress by focusing inward, but the thought of addressing a larger audience leaves her uneasy. Masachika advises her to concentrate on delivering her message, but she interrupts, insisting that won't work. She admits she felt inadequate after watching his speech and asks how he captivates the crowd so effortlessly. Masachika credits his experience more than any specific skill, but shares a trick to grab attention, and hearing this, Alia decides to test it during her speech. Later, Yuki and Ayano join them. Masachika greets Yuki with a scowl, but Yuki feigns ignorance, taunting Alia by asking if she's disappointed in her. Alia dismisses her with a sharp retort, pointing out that Yuki's actions gave her an opportunity for self-reflection. She declares that she now understands her motivation for running, which she plans to reveal during her speech. Masachika, however, confronts Yuki directly, calling her tactics classless. He clarifies that while he isn't angry, he won't hold back if she crosses him again. As tensions rise, Kenzaki, Chizaki, and Masha arrive to finalize the next day's plans. A coin toss determines the order of the speeches, and Yuki chooses to go first, confident it will secure her victory. The next day, the speeches commence. Yuki takes the stage, delivering a polished yet hollow speech filled with generic promises like suggestion boxes. The audience, enthralled by her charisma, applauds enthusiastically. Ayano follows with a flat, robotic delivery, further amplifying the need for a stand-up moment. Backstage, Masachika offers Alia words of encouragement. When her turn arrives, she begins her speech in Russian, leaving the audience wondering what the actual heck. She quickly apologizes, claiming she was nervous, but the unexpected move seizes their attention. Transitioning to Japanese, Alia acknowledges her lack of experience but highlights her relentless dedication and determination. She passionately promises to grow into the leader the school deserves, leaving the audience captivated. Masachika follows Alia's speech, starting with a humorous remark about being Yuki's former vice president and puppet master. He addresses the crowd's curiosity, explaining that he chose to part ways with Yuki and support Alia instead. He praises Alia's authenticity, acknowledging that while her speech wasn't perfect, it was genuine and heartfelt. To everyone's shock, he announces that if Alia becomes president, Taniyama and Miyamae, her former rivals, will join her council. The revelation ignites cheers from the crowd, and Masachika credits Alia for making it possible, boosting her confidence. After the speeches, Taniyama approaches Alia, stating that she won't assist with the campaign anymore now that they're even. Alia responds with determination, vowing to earn Taniyama's approval. Meanwhile, Yuki reflects on her defeat, realizing she misjudged her strategy and resigning herself to her loss for the moment. Later, Alia and Masachika check their exam results. Alia ranks first, while Masachika falls to 33rd place. Since Alia won their bet, Masachika jokingly suggests she call him by his first name as a sign of their closeness. Embarrassed, he blushes when she obliges. As they walk home, Masachika shyly asks if they can continue meeting over the break to prepare for the election. Alya agrees, determined to win more than ever. The end. If you enjoyed this recap, give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. As always, thanks for watching.